We wasn't already careful. We gotta now consciously make an effort to be careful. So it's
Right.
really it's a blessed curse, I guess. Want me to have it out like
Here,
this?
let me get something here.
All right.
So, did you say your kids, or one of your kids goes to Mountain Point?
No. He's just a high school kid. He's in homeschool.
Homeschool. Okay.
Yeah.
And how's that work out? So, do you homeschool them, or?
Yeah. I was a teacher for 12 years. I taught in the Valley for a while as well, coming down here. But I homeschool my kids.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. Okay.
Yeah, it's fun.
So,
What's going on, bro? Doing well.
hi. So this is what we've been doing is we just sort of want what comes from your heart. You kind of look in the camera and just start talking, or look at me. I'm here too, right here.
Yeah.
And so start with this idea. What is it like to be a black father raising a family here in Arizona?
Man, it's pretty scary. I mean, to be honest, just the enigma of being a black father, supposedly, statistically, this is like a rarity, of some odd instance. But it's tough because the expectation is that I'm not here, and my presence is intimidating now. When you see a black father and his son, and you see a strong family, sometimes that's really intimidating to people who've been exposed to another narrative, and then they don't know what to do with this enigma, and they're afraid of it. And so, me as a black father, I'm constantly being reminded of this fear that other people have of me when I'm in the environment, when I'm present.
And tell me what you're doing here right now. What are you here?
Well, I'm over here. I work with a number of organizations and here in the Valley, Tanner Community Development Corporation. Right now, we're just over here getting ourselves organized. The pandemic has caused a rift in lots of businesses, so we're just going over some inventory and cleanup. We had a number of opportunities over the summer to work with youth with our YTC program, the Youth Taking Charge program. So we're just over here just trying to gather up, some of our inventory and keeping ourselves prepared, not knowing exactly what the future may hold with all of our activities.
And I should have had you do this first, because I totally forgot. Now, introduce me. So tell me, if you can, say, my name is blank. I have this amount of kids. We live in the blank area of Phoenix.
Well, that's what's up. All right, yeah, I'm Calvin. I have 3 children, 1 son, and 2 daughters. And we live in the East Valley. And we've been in the Phoenix area, we've been in the valleys, working with a lot of community nonprofit organizations that their target audience is the black people here in the valley. And so I do a lot of outreach with these organizations and creating programs for youth and gaining access to media. So we just here trying to do the patchwork. We had so many plans for 2020 over the summer, and now we just have to come up with something new, and being creative. And so right now, like I said, we're just taking inventory. We're gonna make some decisions about what we can do going on in the future.
What's your philosophy? What drives you to come out to a place like this on a hot day like this and bring your son with you?
Oh man, one, I work for TCDC. I am a media coordinator for the organization,
okay.
And so I'm also, just passionate about Phoenix's black history. Like the story of Black Phoenix was moving to me as I found it, and we're here at the Brooks Community Center, a very historic landmark for Black Phoenix. And Man, I just being connected to this network here, even though it doesn't get a lot of recognition, just being connected to this network here made me feel like the Valley was home.
So is your son working today? Is this part of like a job, or is he volunteering?
Well, he's a part of the YTC, the Youth Taking Charge. That's the youth portion of the Tanner Community Development Corporation.
Okay. So introduce me, tell me your son's name, how old he is, and what he's doing here today.
His name is my name too, like John Jacob Jingleheimer, but except it's Calvin. And so he's little Calvin, or I'm Big Calvin. So he's a teenager, man. He's also started working at a assisted living facility that kind of needed some extra help because of COVID-19. So he's also an emergency worker in the food services department for assisted living facility. He's out there trying to do his hero thing, and he sees all this too. I mean, he's well aware of his, what he represents in a society. We've had to have conversations about him being a tall black boy with locks in his hair, and what that might mean to somebody who might be intimidated by those characteristics. So it's just been a time of reflection of having these conversations. It's really it's hard right now because it's going to keep happening. Like it was happening before. It's going to keep happening until we make some changes, until we get some solutions. One of which is to really just take the dehumanizing rhetoric out of all the training. That's your first step. Phoenix, Mesa, Chandler, or any of these places nationwide, you can remove that dehumanizing rhetoric from all of your training. Your officers can be trauma informed. That information is readily available. I got resources for you. If your officers need some help, we can go in and get facilitation started right now. But it's that we need to start talking about solutions and to get rid of the idea that people who are supposed to bring peace on the street are being trained to look at individuals as potential threats and not individuals as like humans who are just going through human conditioning. We got the wrong side of the coin already. You are already looking to see me as an enemy because of the rhetoric that's in your training, and that in itself, there could be a ton of change with just that. But there's more that can be done, but just eliminate it. And you're not serving animals here. You're not serving insects. You are serving human beings, and you need to know that in your training. That needs to be first and foremost.
Being the father of two emerging teenagers, I'm realizing how precious these few years are to try to instill some principles that hopefully last, right?
Yeah.
When you think about Calvin Jr., if you were to say, I hope I'm teaching him blank, how would you say that sentence? I hope that I am teaching him self-control and self-regulation. Even though those tools did not afford George Floyd any solace, but I want for his own sake, because the trauma happens, and if you live in that trauma and you stay in it, it starts to hurt your body on the inside. You start to decompose with cortisol secreting through your whole body on the inside. So if I'm constantly seeing this and thinking about this, what I want him to know is that he can practice self-regulation and self-control and remove himself from this cycle, this mental cycle. Because if he's healthier tomorrow, if he survives tomorrow, maybe the racists don't move on. Maybe eventually the cortisol in the racist body will destroy the racism and the racist, and he can live in peace and he can move in healthiness.
We're learning how to regulate himself and build resilience from within. And maybe that's how the revolution ends. Maybe we do it with conscious and healthy minds and bodies so we can outlive these unhealthy people who are on the planet causing us so much harm. That's what I would teach them.
Homeschooling because?
Absolutely.
Does that have does your decision to homeschool play into, does it have any relationship to you and your kids being black in this environment, or does it not? And I don't want to lead you on anything, but if you could say, I homeschool my kids because why? Tell me.
Well, I mean, if you look at education in Arizona, black people make up a very small margin of the population in Arizona's education, but we make up a large population in Arizona's special education because of the mislabeling, because it's more convenient to identify a black child, a black boy especially, as dangerous to himself and dangerous to the environment with EBDs and ADDs, and collect a check from that, as opposed to incorporating open learning modalities and changing the pedagogy of the teachers here and the mindset of the teachers. It's the same thing as with the officers. It's laced within the education, the U.S. educational system, to promote supremacy and to promote the idea that somebody is greater than the other in human form. It promotes it through its storyline. It promotes it in how it teaches math and science and literature and language all together. So inside of this curriculum, my son would have already been feeling so low and denigrated because all of this racism and supremacy is laced within the educational system. So unless you're talking about a complete rehaul and an open exposure to the idea of letting people, human beings, find out what they're good at and let them learn it, you don't have a system where they can go and explore and be the best them that they can be. Otherwise, you're going to have to create the system that says, I don't like the way you behave. Let's go and make sure that you end up in some institution where you're making something that says U.S. made on, So
that has a big part.
Absolutely. I didn't want him to be in the pipeline. I didn't want him to have to go to prison.
I'm not narrating this, so again, this is all your words. So do me a favor in a few sentences. Introduce a viewer who doesn't know who you are about your kid's education structure right now. So, I have a background in teaching, and I've decided to do blank.
Yeah. Well, I do. I have a background in teaching, and I decided to. I've been teaching my kids since the beginning. I taught in education. By the time that my kids were ready to go to school, I was already a teacher in their school district. And so, just seeing the beginnings of it, of how the foundation is laid in the pre-K area, the early elementary area, how there's an overexposure to having white female teachers with bias. I already seen how my son and my daughters were lining up into the squares where the system was designed for. And so currently I use a number of modalities. I appreciate Khan Academy. I mean, that's what's up, But right now, we do a lot of exploratory learning, learning about why something exists before we try to get to the principles of you got to memorize the order and the protocol. We start learning a little bit affectively. We start getting connected and see our connection to something before we decide to say you need to learn all of these principles and these words and the definitions of things. So it's always good to connect with your information, with your learning, with your understanding.
That's interesting. And do me one more thing. Spell it out because it's in your words, if you can. In your words, whatever it is, a few years ago, I decided to be my kid's homeschool teacher, or I decided to take them out of the schools, and now I am their teacher.
Yeah. Well, it was done I did it right before 2020 started. I was afraid of the shooting. I was afraid of the violence. I was afraid for my son's accessibility to people who might, who might take advantage of him. You know, the school is full of students who come from disadvantaged places and who find it, the thrill is to play jokes on people or to hurt and harm people. There's some people who have that within them and they feel good when other people feel pain. Those people are in the school with my children. My children were designed like that. So at the end of the decade, I started feeling like I needed to do it. We just made a conscious decision. I hadn't taught in a couple of years and I wasn't involved anymore. I was accessible, like I was in the district that my students were in. And so since I wasn't that connected anymore, I wanted to pull them away as well.
Okay. And this is going to sound crazy, but if you can also just say, in some words, I've decided to be their teacher. Because I'm hearing all your own words, and you told me before I turned on the camera, yeah, I home teach my kids. I home teach. Yeah. So that needs to be said on camera, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I did like that. Well, I mean, it's more than me. Like so my wife and I and my father-in-law and who else? We got a whole bunch of people that put classes together. Shout out to Google Classroom. We put classes together and we created opportunities. I mean, right now it's the summertime, but just this last spring semester while all the pandemic was going on, my wife and I, we did decide to homeschool, and we used as much of the free access that was as possible. We was using all the free resources, but that's what we did. We decided to take advantage of this opportunity here to really empower our children and not leave it up to the educational system that we know that has been failing us. So.
Last thought here, looking to the future. You're clearly trying to help your son see that there's a community out there that it's important to be ingrained in, to help, to be hands-on with nonprofits. As you think about the future for your son, Calvin Jr., how would you say this? What I hope for Calvin Jr. in the future is blank.
Man, I hope for my son Calvin is that he would never have to retell the story to my grandson about how to behave in front of an officer, because we as a people on the planet, we would become more cordial, or we just decide to be better human beings and look at each other and not look at law as my next paycheck. I mean, I would hope that he is in a place where he doesn't have to get pulled over by an officer who's looking for the next ticket to pay for his vacation, or to pay for his rent, or to pay for his meal. We're all in a crazy situation. So for him, I hope that we fix this so that he doesn't have to continue to tell this story to my grandchild or to his grandchild about, hey, we're in this free land, but if you ever see one of those cops, you got to do this, this, and this, and this because you're black. I don't want that.
And I've asked this to everyone I've interviewed. Are you hopeful for Arizona in the future in the environment it provides for black families, and why or why not?
I am hopeful for Arizona because if I don't hold on to hope, man, I might as well just snap out. But I have to be hopeful for Arizona because the desert is a very unique entity. The desert calls on you, and the desert called me. So my hope is that the desert didn't call me down here to get killed by a police officer in the street. Hopefully I can shed some light and shine some light while I'm here in the desert. And I'm absolutely hopeful. Arizona can get it right. Every chief of police, everybody, y'all can get it right. Y'all can do right. I know you can.
That was really, really powerful. I really appreciate it.
Right on, man.
Are they okay if I get a little video of you and your